Hey everyone, thank you for joining me here on the ride and the drive in fantastic Brooklyn, New York, in a kind of different way we're going to do things today. Well, as you can see, I am driving. I am a driver. I own a vehicle that is legally cleared to operate on these fine United States roads in the state of New York, in the city of New York City, in the borough of Brooklyn, and everywhere else I may choose to go. So I usually try my best to keep my cool on these streets because New York is known for its attitude, it's known for its fast pace, it's known for its traffic and congestion. Now, with the traffic and congestion, you have other people, entities, demographics that share the road as well. We have pedestrians, of course, and there's times I am a part-time pedestrian. And then we also have cyclists, but in the past 10 years plus, we've seen a boom of scooters, different kinds of scooters and different kind of transportation devices. So you have like the traditional scooters, gas powered. You also have a lot of electric scooters. You have the scooters that you stand up on. You have electric skateboards. You have the unicycle crowd. There's all types of people traversing these roads, and with so much congested, condensed people here, unfortunately, it's gonna end up in having accidents, and collisions. So in an effort to reduce that, the city of New York, along with other cities as well, city of New York has a Vision Zero, where they look to make things safer for people who are non-pedestrian, who are non-motorists. Because truth is, a vehicle can cause a lot more damage than a bicycle or a scooter or even a person. I get it, where we had to have a whole lot of speed bumps put in, stop signs put in, places where there were not traffic lights before, there are traffic lights now. We have streets that are restricted for vehicular traffic. And we also have things like speed cameras and red light cameras. Getting into the camera thing, many cameras have been put up that a lot of people don't know. A lot of these cameras are called ALPRs, the short for automatic license plate readers. So these things are posted up where they are not as easily identifiable as the traditional speed cameras and red light cameras. The justification is to put the safety in mind so that we can track people who does infractions, because when you go through a red light camera, pops the flash, takes your picture, and sends you a nice bill or summons in the mail that you got to pay. And also for the speeding cameras, same thing. You go over a certain speed past posted speed cameras, you get a nice little summons in the mail. I'm all for keeping things in check and orderly. And the ALPRs is basically right up there, right? So no one should have a problem with the automatic license plate readers because, if you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. That's usually what people like to say when new laws or bills are introduced or passed. So that being said, people don't understand that it's not just motorists that are going to be affected by these things. It's not just motorists it's going to be targeting, basically. It's brought in under the guise, I would say, for safety against motorists who operate their vehicles in an ill manner. Now, yeah, I'm always going to say that it's just too much people. There's been a rise of many traffic infractions that you see, because you don't have to just look at statistics. If you don't live here, I get it. You're going to have to go by the numbers and the stats that's given to you. But when you actually live here and you see what it is over here, it is nothing beats the actual firsthand experience. So yes, a lot of people fly through red lights, unfortunately. People speed on the regular, and a lot of people do things really annoying, really frustrating, and very dangerous. There's a lot of cats out here that want to drive, weave in and out of traffic, go at extremely high speeds. There are people who are just selfish, where they would just want to just cut in front of everybody. So given the fact there's a lot of traffic here, and then when someone cuts in front of somebody else, or they blow past a whole line of cars, that actually causes more traffic. It's a domino effect. If anything, that was actually highlighted on the Mythbusters years ago of the actual effect. I mean, things that we knew, but it's like when you actually see the science applied to it. Anyways, the automatic license plate readers don't just track cars or vehicles that's speeding or vehicles that's doing traffic infractions. No, these things have the ability to track anyone within scope of the lens. We're told usually that it's not going to be used for that, but you know what? Before I even get into the ALPRs, I'm going to get into everything else in the traffic, in the traffic world in New York City. So when we look at a lot of the statistics for cars, we'll start with cars. While you could look up the amount of fatalities between pedestrians and vehicles. Vehicles cause about 56% of fatalities between pedestrians and motorists. Unfortunately, it's a thing, because when you have a whole lot of people, a whole lot of traffic, unfortunately, there's going to be some things negatively impacting a population that's going to happen in the mix. So there, again, like I just said, a lot of people, they like to speed. That's one major cause. A lot of people are just not, they're basically selfish. A lot of people don't really pay attention to what's going on around them. So many people think automatically it's just speeding. That's the automatic demon in this equation with motorists. No, a lot of people don't pay attention. They're not aware of their surroundings. Many people barely even pay attention what's beyond their hood. This is why so many people come out of the parking spots, they just fly out in front of you. Never mind that it's illegal to do so and it's just proper road etiquette to do so. A lot of people just don't pay attention. So when you don't pay attention, you're going to cause problems. You're going to cause traffic. You're going to cause collisions. You're going to cause damage. You're going to cause fatalities, unfortunately. And then there are people who lack conviction when they're driving. You know, some of those people, they look like you don't know if they're going to stay in that lane, if they're going to cut over to the right lane. They don't know where they're going. When you lack conviction on the road, you cannot lack confidence when you're behind the wheel of a motor vehicle. That is something that is a detriment to everyone on the road. You are actually a danger to people. That is another major thing that people don't really track or pay attention to when it comes to driving on the road. Doesn't matter if it's New York City or somewhere in Montana, if you're in Wichita Falls or Kansas or Texas, doesn't matter. You have to have confidence when you're on the road because you are piloting a big lumbering beast. I like to refer to a vehicle as a very clunky exosuit. It doesn't respond as well as your body, but it responds to your input. But none the same, there's going to be big blind spots that you're unaware of. Even in a smaller vehicle, you can have blind spots. But going back to the topic at hand, 56% of pedestrian fatalities come from motorists, unfortunately. So now there are different things. So it's not all on the motorist. I give you some examples of why these things happen. But then when you look at the statistics again, a lot of pedestrians are in the same boat when it comes to not being attentive. Yes, they fail to lose the most when it comes to being hit by a vehicle or even by a bicycle. We're going to get to that as well. But they attribute to 34% due to jaywalking. Jaywalking is basically when you are crossing the street, the road, where it's not a designated legal point to get on the street and get off the street. Basically, mid-block, you're walking against the light because many places that have crosswalks, they have walk and don't walk signals. Many people in New York City do not abide by that. Now, I understand where, you know, if you're waiting to cross the street and you see no cars or you perceive that there's no vehicles and it's against your light, just don't walk, you can cross if you see the coast is clear. You know, it's like Riddick, looks clear. But nonetheless, that is a detriment to people on the road. A lot of people here in New York City are very much against motorists, very anti-motorists. It's been building up over the years, and there's some factors behind that as well I'm going to go get into. But when 34% is a good chunk, you would think it's way less, because how it's usually perceived because of media. You would think that almost every motorist out here has something against pedestrians. You would think that every motorist possibly in this country just have a vendetta and is turned into a bloodthirsty animal when they get behind the wheel. Is not true. Most motorists are responsible. Unfortunately, there are way more situations involved that will cause a collision or even a fatality. So when you look at the pedestrians' accountability, when you look at their part that they play, 34% is a lot to actually, again, cross when it's not your light, to cross mid-block when vehicles are not anticipating anyone or anything crossing. Sure, you could say, well, they're supposed to be responsible. What if a little kid runs out? This is true. But nonetheless, as messed up as it may sound, you can't put all the onus on the driver because we have to be careful. Yeah, of course, the slower you go, the better chance you have to react. This is true. But you still have to remember, a human body has the ability to stop and respond way easier than a vehicle would. So when you're on the actual legal ways of traversing for a vehicle, you have to keep in mind that the vehicle could easily be on there, and you have to use, it's easier for you to see and hear when you're walking to be cognizant. And that's another factor as well. Many pedestrians are very not aware. Why? Because their faces are in their phones while they're walking. They even have earbuds in. And what's the biggest thing that people love to look for? Noise canceling. I want to be in my own world when I'm walking. I want to shut out the noise of the world. You can't do that. I don't like that. Because that, again, it's a detriment to you and a detriment to other people. You will put yourself in a situation that's bad all around. You have to have the senses that Yah gave us. You have to utilize them. Your eyes, your ears, even your skin, your feeling. But when you're engaged, when you're focused on the screen and looking and laughing and chuckling or whatever, you're in a whole nother world. So you're no longer engaged the way you should be with the outside world. So that is a problem. So that's another problem that falls on the pedestrians. You see how it's not just the motorists, because motorists are just always demonized. Going to the third group, that is the cyclists. Now, I don't have the percentage numbers, but I do know that NYPD citations for traffic infractions for cyclists have gone up. NYPD, is known for going out to get money because I always say New York City loves money. So it jumped up from like about 500 infractions for the first quarter of 2025 to about 6,000. Okay, that's summonses doled out to cyclists. That is wild. That is an insane jump. So yes, you could say, all right, they're just looking for money and looking for any old thing. But again, I live here. The people who actually pay attention will see that in New York City, they've been very lax when it comes to putting out judgment and infractions against cyclists and pedestrians. No one really enforces jaywalking, and they're even talking about legalizing jaywalking, and that's a terrible thing. Not because I'm a motorist and I want to stick it to the pedestrians. I said, no, that's a breakdown of order. So you're putting all the onus on one demographic, well, two now, but then the other group, the most vulnerable, but they add to the issues and the collisions and the fatalities as well in their own right. You're completely exonerating them. No, everyone has to do their part. They have to operate legally, because this is how things work properly. When a party doesn't do their part in whatever organization or structure of order, everything breaks down. No matter how much laws you put, how much cameras you put up, how much summonses you put out there, it's not going to work unless everyone does their part or everyone is equally enforced. That's what needs to happen. All right. So now we just went through all the demographics. The motorists a bit, the pedestrians and the cyclists, and I'm not really going over the scooters and the electric boards and everything, because NYPD, the society kind of is lumping them in the same. They're not the same, but they're kind of in the same category. Now, should there be more summonses? Yeah, there should be. I'm not wishing for anyone to get a bunch of summonses, to get points on their license, so that they can end up your license could end up getting suspended or revoked. I would want anyone to have their vehicle taken from them unless you are a legit danger. Should pedestrians pay attention more? Of course. Should they get summonses? Yes, they should. If they're on the road, yes. And if they're doing their fair share, again, 34%, that's in New York City. I didn't do any research on any other place. Cyclists, most definitely, because you can see cyclists, they go in and out of traffic. We, here in New York City, have implemented a whole lot of bike lanes across millions, if not billions of dollars to reconstruct roads, to basically cater to the cyclist demographic, which is great. But then when you're driving, there are a whole lot of cyclists that are not in the bike lanes that were made. There's times where I'm driving and cyclists will be in the road, in the way of vehicular traffic. A lot of cyclists, they don't wait for red lights. A lot of cyclists, they ride up alongside of you where there is no bike lane and they cut in front of you. And it's, cyclists, but mainly scooters that do that, So these lend to, again, the collisions, the accidents, insurance going up, and even fatalities. So every demographic has their part to play. Now, other factors that causes congestion, because we just recently had congestion taxes because, people said there's too much vehicles, we need to do something about the vehicles. What people won't know, especially New York City, since the attacks of 9/11, September 11th happened in 2001, NYPD effectively began restricting vehicular traffic in certain parts of the city, mainly lower Manhattan, because that's where all the activity was, that's where the attacks happened. But they continued to expand that. When, other mayors came in, they actually, yes, partially part of, Vision Zero when that got in inception, they also changed the flow of traffic. So many streets during certain hours, you couldn't go down certain streets. And some streets you just blatantly couldn't go down, period. Some streets had two-way traffic, then they turned it to one-way traffic. Some streets had 4 lanes of traffic that got down to 2 lanes. Over the years, since 2001 to today, that by nature, by physics alone, is going to increase the amount of traffic that's in the city. Once you restrict the flow of traffic, it's going to increase congestion in many key areas. Because in places where you used to be able to drive and you can't drive, now I have to go deviate down certain roads. Those roads are just going to be slower to go. Okay, so just the common sense of it all is going to cause congestion. So basically, the system, past administrations, they created a problem. And then when they saw the problem, see, there's so much cars and congestion, what do? Okay, that gives us grounds to make things like a congestion tax. The more cars that are on the road in a certain area at a certain time longer, it's going to wear the roads down. Naturally, that's going to happen. So hence we have the congestion tax and probably other taxes too that I'm not even, covering or talking about right now. So it's a problem that they made so they could bring in a solution. That's usually how these things go. Going back to the enforcement, when we look at ALPRs, like I was talking about before, the automatic license plate readers, it's not just reading or enforcement against motorists. Usually things are brought in for the sake of safety, the betterment of civilization. But then once it's implemented, it's being used for other things. So these automatic license plate readers are and will be used to track any and everything and everyone, not just cars. People on scooters, people on bikes, people who are on foot walking. Everyone and everything's going to get tracked. Now they say that, it's not going to be used for that because there's a lot of money to be made. That's what it comes down to, is money and control to be attained by implementing these special cameras. When we are now in the age of big data, our data is always being sold. Our data is always being stolen. What does that do? These cameras, they pick up more data. They pick up more data on you. And now we have the inception of AI and all these big data companies. It's tech, but it's not really tech for the regular person to enjoy. This is tech and big data to be used against us, basically. We are the product. Unfortunately, because we lacked self-governance as drivers, to not speed like crazy, to not steal vehicles, to not go through red lights, to not be selfish, we cause even more justification for enforcement to be against us. Because cyclists now want to speed down sidewalks and collide with pedestrians, weave in and out of traffic, not obey traffic laws. That cause more enforcement. Now for the pedestrians, it's not really enforcement, and there should be, but because of that, they lend to the problem, which overall justifies the implementation of even more enforcement against us, tracking us, control, and I'll say oppression of us. While the people who are implementing these things, the entities, are making big money and making big strides in tightening the noose around us. Everyone has their part to play with causing this because we lack self-governance. So that gives justification for these people to move in and do what they want to do. So just as a lot of these new vehicles can track you inside the vehicle to see if you're distracted, to see if you have your phone, to see if you're falling asleep, these cameras are going to do the same thing. Not if you're falling asleep during the road, but they pick up your patterns. Certain cameras are going to see you in certain areas and pick up the pattern of, okay, what's your usual routine? And these cameras are going to pick that up. They track that. They store that data. What do they use it for? Mainly for enforcement. Because, people always talk about this social credit thing. You can't watch TV, you went past your social credit score of TV or food for the day or whatever it is. This is what it usually comes down to. This is where they're tightening the noose. It's more for oppression. It's not for our betterment. It's for the betterment for their wallets, because that is the technocrat class now, which is basically another form of oligarchs and elites, whatever the case is. Now, the reason I bring all this down, yes, I went over some legitimate problems that we have. The best way we could still go forward is at least we can govern ourselves the way we're supposed to, so that we don't have any issues with law enforcement against us, even though, they're finding ways to get more money out of us, to rile us up, to get more control out of us. But I end this off to say, we all have our part that we played. The unfortunate part in this society, we always want to point fingers away from us the other way. I know people always say when you point one finger, you have, 3 more going back to you. But we fell asleep at the wheel. We've given up a lot of our responsibilities to other people we pay for. Let's let everybody else worry about the laws. We have laws we have to upkeep ourselves. We fell asleep at the wheel when we just allowed automation to take over. And callously, what do people respond with that? Oh, well, if you had a better job, then that's your fault if you had a job and a robot or automation took your job. That's terrible, a terrible thing to say to anyone who's been working a certain way in a certain industry. Everyone deserves to be productive. And because the powers that be want to find a cheaper way to replace us, and that's always the issue, that we always gonna be replaced, easily replaced. Yah Almighty made us with a purpose. He made us with talents. He made us with abilities and gifts. To replace us, to devalue us, that's straight demonic, man. When you tell people too bad, too sad, learn how to code in response to them losing their job to it, in an industry, that's callous. That's demonic talk. You're speaking demonic language, and they love that stuff. We all have laws to upkeep. Human laws, yes, it does lend to order. But the true order comes from Yah Almighty. We always should look to Him. Always look to Him. If we self-governed the way we're supposed to, we wouldn't have any of this stuff going on right now. So, drivers, slow down. Don't be selfish. Pedestrians, stop being in La La Land. Own up to the part you play when you're on the road and in these streets. Cyclists, do your part as well. People in general, whatever you are, wherever you are, do your part. Move the way you're supposed to. Move the way Yahushua HaMashiach wants you to move overall. Anyways, that's all I got. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to catch you guys next time. I'm out.